Our stories and the manner in which we tell them are what differentiate us. Now, when you invoke the term differentiate, you are smack dab in the middle of the personal brand conversation. By design, branding is the science and art of differentiation. But there's a whole lot more to it than that. It's about making the first impression, the next impression, the lasting impression. It's about becoming memorable. It's about becoming indelible. It's when your presence becomes undeniable. They can't deny you, try as they may. And we're all trying to figure out the best way to become undeniable. Differentiation is on. Let me tell you a little bit about the ways that businesses are marketing now. It's no longer about moving product off the shelves or selling services. It's about creating a culture around the brand, creating an experience around the buy. Starbucks would love to sell you a cup of coffee, but more, they want to sell you the second, the third. They want to keep you in the store all day. Then they want you to buy the hand-thrown pots that sit on their shelves. Then they want you to buy the beans. Then they want you to buy the beans online. Then they want you to buy the special holiday CD produced exclusively for them by Paul McCartney and the Rolling Stones. But more than that, they want you to take the selfie with your Starbucks cup in front of the Grand Canyon with that logo front and center so they can paste it on Facebook. That's what they want. That is what creates a culture around a brand. That's how they reinforce their mission. Stimulate the intellect. Generate brand loyalty. So I thought, which can be dangerous, can personal brands apply these same rules? And I think they can. And I think they can do it in a very cyclical way, because that's how we impose our will on those we meet. That's how we implant ourselves in the minds of others. The first piece, the all-important piece, the internalization piece. This is the thinking piece. This is how we assimilate. This is how we take everything that we observe, that we experience, and internalize it. It stays here, attaching judgments and meanings and evaluations and beliefs, core beliefs, to the process. And when we have the guts, the presence to externalize it, that's when we become undeniable, because then people get an idea as to who we really are. That is the behavior piece. These thoughts and ideas are converted into behaviors. The world is seeing this. We are telegraphing ourselves in a certain way. And we have the ability, once we do that, to course correct on the fly, to gauge the impact we are making. And that is the impact piece. And that's how you can truly create a personal brand culture. Now, I flash back to 1995 when I basically discovered the internet, and I realized that I could start to shape, guide, and manage perceptions of me online. Think of when you discovered the internet. You became an extension of yourself in the virtual world. Fascinating stuff, especially for psychologists like myself. But as I moved forward, I knew that I had the ability to influence what people were thinking about me. And if I could put myself out there in a certain way so that people would take me at face value, I was in the game. I was in their psychic hierarchy. They would not forget. And then when it came time to find my influence, the words came. They came on email. They came on voicemail. And in my business, they came on writing my website copy and the website copy of others, which was the business that I had chosen. And then I moved to crowdsourcing my personal brand. I would actually tell people, in conversation, what do you think about when you think of me? Do I even crack the conversation when it comes to my product, service, skill set, talent, niche? And I would get good feedback in return, and I would reinvent. I would adapt. I would course correct, and I would put myself out there in a new way. Internalize, externalize, and transform. Now, I'm going to argue, but gently so, that our personal brands have been in the makings for a long time, many years, since we were kids on the playground. The French psychologist Jean Piaget, you know him, you love him, you can't develop through childhood without him. says that we pass through various stages of development to get to where we are, assimilating the world around us, incorporating various elements into our schema, and again, course correcting on the fly, turning into the wonderful adults that we are. And this is what I was doing. I was looking for ways to incorporate my backstory into my present story so that I would become undeniable. Now, there's a very famous family story that I'll share with you. Back in 8th grade, when I was in junior high school, what you folks call middle school today, I was assigned in science class to do a project, and it could be on anything I wanted, anything under the sun, as long as it had to do with science. So I picked the owl. I picked the owl, revered by cultures for centuries because of its wisdom, spirituality, mystical qualities. And she is the ultimate hunter. And that's the way that I viewed myself. I identified with the owl right away. There was a lot of talk around our dinner table at night about owls. And my sister Marcia, 14 months younger, who was in a ceramics class at the time, decides that she's going to make an owl figurine, which she did. It was a very crude representation, stands about this high. One ear is a little lopsided. One eye is bigger than another. There's a symmetry issue there, but it's an owl. It's undeniably an owl. And she entered it into the school art fair. She did not win. Place or show. And there is a very famous family photo of her, very pissed, exceedingly pissed, holding the owl. And when we got home, I remember this like it was yesterday. She was going to toss it. She was going to throw it away. And I said, wait! I want that. And I kept it. And that owl now sits on a velvet stand within a shadow-boxed frame on my credenza in the office of Owlish Communications. So when it came time to name my business, what was I thinking? Was I on this path of relentless innovation, reinvention, adaptation, communication? I was. I didn't know it back then, but I took from the owl. I took its characteristics. It's a great acronym. The O piece, I was observing anyway. I was always about observing. I took in the world around me, and I knew that what was going to stick was what I was going to show to the outside world. The W, which is required by law in any owl acronym to be wisdom. What else could it be? I gleaned wisdom. I applied wisdom. I was all about wisdom. I'm a lifelong learner, folks, and I hope you are too. Best advice I can give you today, really, is to become a lifelong learner. It starts here. And then, of course, the language, the words I use, the ability to find my influence, to operate in stealth so that people wouldn't see me coming. Flashback to January 1st, 2007. You know where you were. You were enjoying the economic downturn. And companies were downsizing like they were going out of business because they were. It was a tough time. And Owlish Communications was in dire straits. I didn't know where my next piece of business was coming from. Truly, I didn't. I was writing website copy at the time, so people at least who were downsized from jobs that they held for 15 or 20 years, unceremoniously so, were now becoming consultants, coaches, entrepreneurs, and they were engaging me to write website copy on very, very limited budgets. And then, as I was minding my own business, this thing called social media comes along, and I couldn't have been happier. I was ready for social media to come along because suddenly, through a site I like to call LinkedIn, I had an outlet through which I could convey a social brand and tell a brand story in a realistic, feasible way. The first incarnation of my LinkedIn profile is nothing like it is today. I'm 6 or 7 reinventions ahead of that first one. But what happened, each time I staged it, I was able to live up to the expectations that I wrote. An online profile sells you when you are not in position to sell yourself. And I could be anyone I wanted on that profile. Yeah, I could act as if, but I never went out of the realm of possibility. I never went out of the realm of believability. I was that guy. And as long as I could live it, Out there in the real world, I truly was that guy. And I became undeniable because the two versions match. I was able to take the version I had in the real world and the version that I was creating in the virtual world, and I fused them. I went out there congruent, consistent, every day. I had a brand construct, had the concept, had the context. Now I had the construct. And as I went out there telling my story to anyone who would listen, knowing that I was engaging at least some area of their brain, I knew that there was a psychic hierarchy, and that if I could somehow get to the top of that psychic hierarchy, that I would be in the game. That when the conversation did turn to what I did, I'd be there. They'd think of me. And I was putting myself out there again in a way that was very realistic, very authentic. I hope you are putting yourself out there in an authentic way, because that truly is the key to personal brand success and stimulating interest in your culture as a personal brand. There are three basic sub-movements that I've isolated within the social media revolution that I'd like to share with you. The first is brand storytelling. This is how we develop and actually tell the story. The second, you're going to hear a lot about this in coming years, is content marketing. This is how we assemble the means to sell our story, the channels through which our story is disseminated. And the third sub-movement, which is a challenge for everyone, perhaps yourself, because you've been building this thing called a professional network over time, is how do we manage a community? Community management, where we get the chance to live out our story in front of real people. And then we can move from internal to external to transformation and course correct on the fly. Can't do it without being in front of others, virtually or in the real world. Flashback to another story. I'm giving a keynote on LinkedIn to 250 micro-business owners and entrepreneurs, creative types, right-brainers, my kind of people. And right before I go on, the organizer of the event tugs on my shoulder. She says, JD, they're going to learn about LinkedIn tonight, are they? And I said, you better believe it, Monica. She says, we want you to give them the practical tips, the techniques, the workarounds. But they want to hear your story. Tell them your story. At the moment she said that, I didn't think my story would be of interest to anyone. I'm trying to teach austere corporate types how to leverage a platform that was at the time seen to have great influence in decisions on how we move products, acquire talent, and build a brand. They wanted the knowledge. I didn't think they wanted to hear about JD. But it was at that moment, truly, that I realized it is my story that differentiated me, that it was good, and it does make me qualified to talk about what I talk about. I think sometimes we have a feeling that our stuff isn't going to be seen or received by the right people. There's a certain message in a bottle effect on the stuff we put out there, is there not? I feel it every day. I don't know who's looking. I don't know what kind of feedback I'm going to get. But when they do like, and when they do comment, and when they do share, that's the best metric out there for me, the qualitative metric. Then I know that whatever I'm doing is working. And then I get to live my story, my brand story, out in front of a community that's going to be receptive to it. The network that I've built, trying to stay relevant within the network I've built. And from that, I have pulled out meaningful conversations from the online world, breaking the plane into the real world. This is what I'd like to implore you to do. Don't just look at this stuff as idle activity. LinkedIn, social media, LinkedIn again, huge debt of gratitude from me to LinkedIn. I truly do not know where I would be without it, because it gives us that outlet for business purposes. There's a piece of our personal brand that's out there for personal reasons, but we're talking about how we shape our commerce, how we drive business decisions on us, putting our best possible perception, what I like to call our BPP, out there, to tell our best possible story, to create the best possible outcome. One thing to know about me, I'm an internal optimist. I just look for the good in people and in situations. Always have, always will. People know that when they call me, they can count on a word of encouragement, get a question answered, or I'll tell them a joke. Humor's big. Don't underestimate the value of humor, folks. But the one thing that separates me from a lot of people struggling with brand issues right now is the commitment. I was willing to do the deep brand work, the dredging, as I like to call it. The self-assessment that goes beyond what kind of song am I or what kind of flower am I from Brand Workshops 101. I did the deep stuff. I wanted to guide and manage perceptions. I wanted people to think of me in a certain way. I wanted them to associate me with my product or service or niche or cause in a way that was believable for them and climb to the top of their psychic hierarchy. But more than that, I just want it to be received in a respectful way, which I hope you are looking to do as well. When you treat people with respect, it comes back to you in spades. Absolutely. Everything I've ever done in business, in life, has been through golden rule methodology. In closing, there are many people in the personal brand industry. The personal branding business is alive and well. If you are having problems finding that backstory of yours, there are plenty of personal brand strategists to help you with that. But I'll offer you this advice on building your personal brand. Stand for something meaningful, and the rest will fall into place.